Okay, so let's do a few more examples with balancing equations just to get some more practice. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one because this one's probably the trickiest of this assignment. And then if we can walk through this one, the other ones should follow in a similar pattern. So it'll be helpful. All right, so this is actually called a combustion reaction. So we've got methane, or as you guys would know it right now, carbon tetrahydride, oxygen, and then carbon dioxide and water. So the first thing that we do when we set up balancing equations is we write our equation out. So I went ahead and did that here. Now, step 2 is to create your inventory list. Okay, so I'm going to write out all of the elements that I have in my reactants and my products. Okay, due to what we know about the law of conservation of mass, they're going to be the same elements on each side. So what I do is I go in order from my reactants on the left hand side. So I had a C, an H, and an O. And I know they're going to be the same on the right hand side, but I keep them in the same order. So I'm going to write C, H, and O. Okay, and this is just when we balance, it'll make it a little bit easier. Next thing I want to do is go through and count my number of atoms of each element on each side. So this carbon, he doesn't have a subscript, so we assume that's 1. Hydrogen has a 4 subscript, that's 4, and then oxygen has a 2. Okay, now let me come to my products. Carbon, no subscript, that's assumed 1. Hydrogen, remember we wrote them in the same order as on the left-hand side, so this hydrogen has a subscript of 2. Now for this one, it's a little bit tricky because we've got oxygen in 2 different molecules. So we have 2 plus 1 is 3 oxygens, okay? All right, so we've got 3 oxygens. Now we start to balance. So what I do is I just start at the top of my inventory list and I balance as I go. So remember, when we balance, we add coefficients in front of the molecules in order to manipulate. We can never change the subscripts and we never put a 0, okay? If something is assumed 1, you just leave it blank, or you can write a 1, but we never write zeros, okay? All right, so my carbons are already balanced. So I'm going to go to my hydrogens. I have 4 hydrogens on my left, so that means I'm going to need 4 on my right. All right, so I have to ask myself, what coefficient can I put in front of my hydrogen in my product side in order to bring it up to a 4? Well, I know that 2 times 2 will give me 4, so I'm going to put a 2 here and add my coefficient. Now, anytime you add a coefficient, you want to make sure you update your inventory list. Okay, so 2 times 2 is 4. However, this 2, because it's attached to the water molecule, it doesn't just affect the hydrogen, it affects the oxygen as well. So now I need to update my oxygen inventory as well. So now I have 2 plus 2, which will give me 4, okay? Because now, since we put this coefficient here, I've got 2 oxygens, okay? And then I add to the 2 that were originally there. So now my carbons are balanced, my hydrogens are balanced, but my oxygen now on my left-hand side is out of balance, okay? So I need to get my oxygen on my reactant side up to a 4. I'm going to ask myself again, what coefficient can I put in front of my oxygen to give me 4 oxygen? I know that 2 times 2 is 4, so I'm going to put a 2 there, and then that'll give me 4. So now let's double check. We've got 1 carbon, 4 hydrogens, and then 4 oxygens on each side. That is a balanced equation, okay? So you always want to write your equation out, write your inventory list, and then add your coefficients down your inventory until you balance your equation, okay? Again, if you don't need a coefficient in front of your molecules, you can just write a 1. Sorry, there's a teacher outside and I think she was having a problem, but hopefully you didn't hear that. But in case you did, so sorry about that. So you can add a 1, but typically, best practice would just be to leave it blank. But again, you guys are in a learning stage, so if you need to write a 1 just so that you know it's a placeholder, you can put a 1. But again, we don't put zeros. I've been noticing that a little bit. Okay, so that is that one. And I will say, just with this particular assignment, let me go back really quick. With this particular assignment, sorry, it took me a minute to exit out of the drawing. With this particular assignment, you're balancing those in 2. On 3, just know that if you count up your inventory list, so when you get to this slide and start doing these, when you count up your inventory list, if the inventory lists are the same, so if you count them up and you find that your equations are already balanced, so if you have the same number of each atoms on your left and your right hand side, if it's already balanced, you can leave it alone, or you can type 1 for those coefficients. You don't have to, you can leave it blank, but if you find that it is a balanced equation, just type in a 1 or leave it blank. You do not need to add coefficients. Okay, hopefully this helps. If not, you can always come see me in office hours.